Hello guys, welcome back to Biozone. Myself Vidisha Bhattacharya, and today we will discuss about a very important portion of the reproductive physiology, that is the oogenesis, process of formation of mature female gamete. As we all know that for a successful fertilization we need a mature male gamete and a mature female gamete. The process of formation of the mature male gamete is called the spermatogenesis that we mentioned and discussed previously. If you missed that video, please go through the link that is mentioned in the description box, right? So, if you can recall the process of the spermatogenesis, you can easily understand the difference between the oogenesis and the spermatogenesis. What we see in the spermatogenesis is that the primordial germ cell, the main stem cells of this gametogenesis process, remains inside the seminiferous tubule of the testis even after the birth. So they can produce sperm throughout their life. But in the case of the female, that doesn't happen. These primordial germ cells are generally absent after birth, and we have some limited number of the immature gamete from where we produce a finite number of mature and workable gamete after birth. So from here a question may arise, that is, so when this primordial germ cell develops and how it is helping in this female gamete development process, right? For that, you have to understand the two life phases of the oogenesis process. That happens in two ways. One life phase is called the intrauterine life, the life that we pass inside the womb of the mother. And second is the life what we have after birth. In these two life phases, oogenesis process is generally happening. So in the first phase, that is in the intrauterine life, this primordial germ cell first develops from the endodermal cells of the yolk sac. From here, the primordial germ cells travels towards the gonadal ridge and enters into the gonad. In this time, they continues to divide mitotically to produce oogonias, the cell which will later produces female gametes. During the 7th month of the intrauterine life, all these oogonia cells differentiates and increases in size to produce primary oocyte. Now the phase by which the PGC cell develops into the oogonia is called the multiplication phase, and the phase that I described now, that is the formation of the oogonia into the primary oocyte, is called the growth phase, as because the size of the cell is growing, right? Next, immediately after the formation of the primary oocyte, this cell enters into the maturation phase, that is generally governed by the meiosis. In this phase, first this all primary oocytes enters into the prophase 1 of the meiosis 1, that is a reductional phase, okay? But due to the absence of the cell cycle promoting proteins and the hormonal surge, they become arrested in the diplotin phase. Now in this time, these primary cells become encapsulated or surrounded by some special type of epithelial cell that is called the granulosa cells and forms primordial follicle. Within this primordial follicle, so we have our primary oocyte, whose nucleus is called the germinal vesicle now, and this phase is characterized by the decondensation of the chromosome. In early time, there are near about 6 millions of this type of primordial follicle that is reduced to 3 to 2 million near birth, and at the reproductive age we only have 3 lakhs of this primordial follicle inside our ovary, of which only 480 predominant follicle will produces the mature workable female gamete until menopause. Okay. So from here we can easily understand that each oocyte matures inside each follicles, and when the follicles maturing gradually inside it due to some event, the arrested primary oocyte is also maturing. So how it is happening? For that you have to understand the oogenesis process that is occurring after birth. After birth, due to the small pulses of the pituitary gonadotrophin, that is FSH and LH, ovaries remains nourished, and these hormones indirectly help in maintaining the pool of this primordial follicle intact. But they didn't show any significant role in the oocyte maturation in this phase. When our follicles develops gradually from the primordial follicle to the primary follicle and the secondary follicle, the granulosa cells number increases, and these granulosa cells also matures, which now expresses the receptor for the FSH. Surrounding this granulosa cell we can see another set of cells, right? This is called the thecal cells. This cell shows the receptor for the LH. During the puberty, due to this receptor's activity, the LH and FSH activity increases on the follicular cell. That latter helps in the maturation of the follicle cell further, and also the development of the mature oocyte. So when the hormonal activity increases further, the secondary follicle now develops into a first type of antral follicle, that is called the tertiary follicle. In this time, the primary oocyte acquires enough amount of cell cycle promoting component due to the environmental support and continues to grow. This growth remains until they acquire the size of 140 micron. This size generally they acquires when the maturation of the follicle completes. That means the last type of mature follicle forms, which is called the Graafian follicle. Now inside the Graafian follicle, our primary oocyte now acquires the size of 140 micron. This event is followed by high peak of LH, which causes the completion of meiosis 1 in the primary oocyte and also causes ovulation. Now from here one question may strike, that is, what happens in the meiosis 1 and how many numbers of cell produces after that? Number 2, what happens in the ovulation? Okay, so in the first question I would like to say that when the primary oocyte, that is diploidic in nature, completes their meiosis 1, they produces only one secondary oocyte, that is haploidic in nature. So where the rest half set of chromosome goes, right? In this phase, cytokinesis happens unequally, so that a large cell containing much more amount of cytoplasm and half set of chromosome produces secondary oocyte, and remaining negligible amount of cytoplasm containing entity that holds rest of the haploid chromosome forms another structure is called the polar body. And after this process, the secondary oocyte along with the polar body releases out from the mature Graafian follicle. This process is called the ovulation. So after ovulation, where these secondary oocyte enters, right? So this secondary oocyte after ovulation, that means releasing from the Graafian follicle along with their first polar body, enters into the fallopian tubule and travels through this towards the uterus. And in this time, if sperm cells appears and interact with our secondary oocyte, that is generally become arrested in the metaphase 2 of the meiosis II. The sperm helps to produce anaphase promoting complex and the metaphase promoting factor inside the secondary oocyte that helps them to complete the metaphase 2 and the rest of the meiosis II, and it produces the mature ova. In this time, similarly, a single ova will produce from the secondary oocyte and rest of the chromosome will go to the second polar body with a negligible amount of cytoplasm. In this event, another thing happens that we can see in the picture is that the first polar body divides into two polar bodies. So at the end of this event, we are getting three polar body that later degenerates. Now, if sperm will not appear, what will happen? The secondary oocyte will remain arrested in the metaphase 2 and will come out along with the 1/3 of the endometrium as menstrual flow. So why and how this menstrual flow happens? To know this mechanism, please stay tuned with us, okay? And up to this, we completed today the process of oogenesis. If you have any doubts and if you require any notes, you can ping us in our Telegram channel. The link is mentioned in the description box, or you can share your doubts in the comment box also. So until that, tada.